Welcome to Ulterior Moto, your home for writers' reviews and how-tos. I'm Chris, and if you are anything like me, you go to the track on a somewhat frequent basis, and you're really curious. Am I getting faster, or am I just a little bit faster than the people who are around me right now? Well, unless you have some sort of data acquisition system, you really don't know. You're in the dark. You're just going by feel, and maybe you think you're going faster, but again, how do you know? And more importantly, how do you know where you're going faster? And are you consistent? And how could you be going consistently faster? I recently had the opportunity to test out this product from Dragy, which uses GPS data to find out lots of information, including where you are on the track, obviously, your lap times, where you're braking, where you're accelerating, what your speed is at any moment on the track, as well as lean angle, which is super informative for those of us who are riding bikes. So we're gonna dive into what comes in the box, how it works, what the app is like to use, and how we can take that data, overlay it onto video. See how that turns out. Let's go. All right, so let's take a look at what you get when you buy this product. So we unbox it here. There's not a heck of a lot to it. We got this small little box here. This is only a few inches long. There's the indicator light top, a mini USB charging port in the back. Underneath, their information. It works at 10 hertz. These little recesses right here, you can see, those are where the magnets are located. And that's really all there is to it. There's not even a power switch for it. It's really minimal. Let's remove that. We have the charging cable that comes along with it. And I'm just keeping everything in this box. You know, I've used it, obviously, but it's handy enough to keep it all in the same box. Got a little bit of information on how to use it. It's really cursory info. Those links are all you really need to figure it out. But it does help to have videos like this that kind of really walk you through it. Yeah, that's it. There are a couple little plates, and I'll show you those later in the video. They are adhesive on one side and they're steel. So these magnets will stick to them if you have a non-magnetic surface that you're attaching it to, like it's plastic for your tank or the tail or whatnot. You can use those plates. Curiously, they're only about this long, so it doesn't really get you a connection with both magnets at the same time. There are two that come with it, so if you pair them up, you can get it to work. Really weird size that they use. I'll go over that later, but that's all there is to it. When it comes to mounting the Dragy, you have just a couple options here. So there are two magnets in the bottom of the unit. You can see sort of an outline of a rectangle on each end here, kind of in the corners. And if you have a magnetic surface for them to attach to, a ferrous surface, I should say, steel, then you can mount it pretty much anywhere you have that's a relatively flat surface. If you don't, it does come with these adhesive-backed metal plates. And so you could take these plates and you can mount them on a plastic surface, and then the Dragy will adhere to them. Here's kind of a weird thing about this, however. Let's say I put this, not that I need it on my tank, but I was going to put it here. Well, the magnets are far enough apart that they only barely touch the edge of the magnetic plate, and so it's not really very secure. I don't know why they chose to make it like they did, but if they made it at least the length of the Dragy, that would be helpful. Fortunately, it does come with two, so if you want to, adhere two of them to any surface, you can do that. It does need to be a flat surface, however. This is perfectly flat on the bottom of it, understandably so. I don't really have a whole lot of flat surfaces on my bike. Fortunately, I do have a steel tank, but for those of you who don't, and maybe this is an air box or you got a lot of plastic on here, you're gonna have to find another place to mount your dragy if you're gonna use that. So consider that ahead of time. Where am I gonna put this? It is relatively small. It's only like 2.5, 3 inches long. So it doesn't take up a lot of space, but you are gonna have to have some space for it. I simply left it on my tank like this, and it was pretty secure. I would like to have a little more power to the magnet, because there were times when I would come in from my session and it had kind of drifted over to one side. It wasn't a problem for me because there is sort of a channel here. I wasn't really worried it's going to jump over that. But I would feel more comfortable with it if it did have stronger magnets to it. But that said, I never had a problem with losing it during my sessions. I did 5 sessions at Thunderhill with this, most of them in the A group, and it held on just fine.
Let's look in the motorcycle folder here, select the Dragy Lap app, and it knows where I am, which isn't a miracle or anything, but those are the tracks closest to me. But if I move up a little bit, I can see I've also got Thunderhill. There's some in Reno as well, and then Southern California. But I selected Thunderhill. So let's say we were going to start recording now. I could connect to Dragy, and at that point the blue light comes on to tell me that I'm connected to it. Select Thunderhill. As you saw, there's some satellite data entering. As you saw, there's a number next to it, so there are different configurations of Thunderhill. So as this loads here, I'm going to select the East configuration with turn 5. And that's it. I'm ready to hit go now and start recording data if I was there. And you don't have to worry about doing it just before you head out or anything. It automatically throws out your whatever times you were doing, however long it took you to get to the start finish line, it's going to toss that data out, so you don't have to worry about any of that. You could do it whenever it's comfortable for you. So, if you were storing this in your leathers, which I wouldn't recommend, you could hit go and then take your time getting ready and getting out on the track and not really have to worry about hurrying up with it at all. But let's not do that. Let's go to data that I've already acquired. So I go to me. We can see that I've done 5 sessions with the Dragy and the mileage and my top speed. If we go into, let's go into a little bit of other things before we go into the data. So you can define what vehicle you're tracking at this point. So if you have multiple vehicles, you can add multiple vehicles into this, so it keeps them sorted. And then you can also select your modifications. So there's all sorts of things here, and it's sort of maybe slightly car focused, but there's plenty of stuff for motorcycles as well, and I don't have a ton of like engine modifications or anything like that, but I do have suspension and some tire data and some exhaust stuff. Anyhow, let's go back there. All right, and look at the history, because that's the more interesting part. So we can see, the dates and times that I did sessions. I did some in September and some in October of 2023. It highlights for you what was your best of that day. So my 2:13 at Thunderhill East was my best. But for that one, I'm going to skip that. We have more to learn from the laps that I didn't do so great. So let's look at where the 2:16 was the best. And I also have some GoPro footage for that. So when you first get into it, where you see this green towel here, that it'll say GoPro Plus, and then you just add your GoPro data. Now, it's not always that easy to get GoPro data onto your phone, right? Because it's on a card. But you can, if you use a reader, you could do that, or upload it onto your computer, and then from your computer to your phone, that works as well. So that's really the only clunky part about this. Importing it, super easy. Once you have it as a file in your phone, all you do is hit that, and it takes a little time to sync everything up, but it does it, and it's pretty seamless. So let's go through a little bit of the features on this page. If I hit the play button there, it opens up the track map. As you can see, it's all color-coded by your fast and slow areas, relatively speaking. So I'll hit the play button, and then we get this little animation of my bike. I'm sure it's very generic, all white motorcycle. And it takes you through your lap sort of at a real-time pace. So one of the things that's cool about it is shows your time, shows your speed, and it shows your lean angle. So it's kind of a little wonky in that it defines left turns as a negative lean angle and right turns as a positive lean angle. And the way it comes up with the lean angle is algorithms used from the GPS. So there's not an accelerometer or anything in the unit. It's strictly using the GPS data to come up with this. And how they do that is way beyond me, but it seems to be pretty accurate. It's very similar to other data gathering devices that I've used in the past, so it's not, at least out of the realm of possibility there. So as you can see, it's dropping these little markers here, which are the fastest and slowest points for you on that lap. And as you can see, as we go through Thunderhill's sort of quasi-corkscrew there. And then at the bottom, it gives you the elevations as well, and your speed. So I'll cut this a little bit short, and we'll go back to the rest of it, since we've almost finished our lap here. And some of the just basic data, right, is I went 117 miles per hour at one point. That doesn't really tell me a whole lot. It does tell me what my fastest speed was on that particular session. But as we scroll down, here's where it really gets cool. This is the best display of data that I've seen on the systems that I've used. Opportunities. So it shows me that I could have saved 1.7 seconds had I done all the sections to my best ability during that session. So it divides it up. In this track, it happens to have it in 9 different sections. And as you can see, these little green highlighted areas, highlighted numbers in the blue highlighted sections, I could have saved nearly a second on the last 2 turns, likewise on turn 2, and then a little bit on turn 3. So let's hit our arrow here. As we go through here, because I've already really to it, it's showing you my best lap overall. And on the right, it's showing you more optimal. That is also highlighted in yellow on the graph. Better seconds. On the left is better lap overall. So what I found really fascinating about this, I'm hit pause here. So I'll just analyze these first 2 corners, which are the first section of the track, and I can see that I had less speed down the straightaway as I crossed the start-finish line. So I had made errors in previous corners that led to this, and we can look at that later as well. But I entered with more speed. It seems that my braking point was about the same though, regardless. So I could have braked later, right? Even though I was carrying in less speed, I could have braked later on the blue one. And then as we come through here, I also had a slower minimum speed going through turn 1. Now we see the dot over the map also letting us know where we are in the aerial view. And then as we look at the footage at the very top of the screen, you can see how far ahead I was on one than the other, as well as my approach. My angle of attack there was a little different. I apexed at different spots on the track. My speed in between the corners was roughly the same, and then it gets pretty interesting here again as I go through turn 2, which as you can see is 180 degrees, is a really long left-hand turn. So I approached it differently on these two laps. So as we can see, clearly the yellow lap was faster for most of that section, quite a bit here as I'm fully turned in, but then it gets a little slower. And what I can do is look at that video footage on top and see my line is completely different at this point on these turns. I had drifted out wide a little bit on my faster section on the right, and got off the throttle a little bit to tighten up that turn, but then was able to get back out of it and hit my apex and get on the gas sooner and exit the corner faster. So overall, that was better. It was not optimal by any means. I could have done it a little smoother, but my line through there was great. As you can see, it's really actually a late apex at this corner because you don't want to get too wide for the next one. So as we look at the footage at the top, I'm nice and tight, close to the apex there. And on my slower version, I'm out wide, which didn't set me up well for the next corner either. And we can look at that. And that's probably the reason I lost, what is it, about a quarter of a second through there, as I came in slower. And then I got about the same, tipping it in, and unfortunately slowed down more as I went through the corner. But I did exit a little bit better. And then if we select section 9 here, this is really confirmation of what we assumed before, is that as I came through here, I was slower going into, I believe it's turn 13, so 13 and 14, and then way slower coming out onto the straightaway, which lost me a lot of time. And we can also see that one of the things that's really compelling about this is I have the video in front of me. I can tell if there was some obstruction that affected my lap time. And as you can see through here, through almost the entire thing, there were no slower riders holding me up for the most part. I do think, as we look at the upper left there, there is a rider up there, and that did get into my head a little bit. I wasn't sure if I was going to run up on him real fast coming into 14 or not, and I clearly had plenty of room that I could have come up on him pretty good. Of course, I hadn't ridden with him before, so I didn't really know. But I think that did probably affect me in my lap time there. All right, so that's really the coolest part of it. Let's see what else we have to look at. There are other graphs about how fast you were going, and the graph is zigzag, and I don't really find that all that helpful. Longitudinal acceleration as well. It doesn't really help me. I suppose you could maybe dive into that if you're like super consistent, and then you could look at some of that kind of data. But it does have a fair bit of noise to it. I don't think I'm chopping the throttle as much as this might indicate, or maybe those are just shift points. Lean angle is really cool in context. Just looking at a graph of lean angle, I don't know, the max and min is kind of cool. It does tell me that I got over a couple more degrees to the left than I did to the right, but that's not terribly bad, in my opinion anyway. The G-plot also, I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I think it's more helpful for cars really than it is for motorcycles. And then the brake, basically it tells you it's calculating it. I'm sure it's using GPS to do that. It's sort of a binary measurement there, all or nothing. Altitude, maybe that's informative in some circumstances. I don't think it's all that applicable here. The weather, however, I do think is good information to have, because that does tell you a lot about how your tires might have performed that day, or if you're in really cold weather, of course you're going to have less grip, or if it was raining, far less grip. So that is an overview of the app and all you can learn from that, and I think it is incredibly valuable the way they present the data. It's pretty amazing, and I love the product for that reason. So this is what it looks like when you put the lens mod on your GoPro, but you forget to tell your GoPro that you did that, and also what it sounds like when you didn't tell your GoPro that you had your mic hooked up. Anyhow, as you can see, the visuals are pretty cool for the dragy. As I go into turn 2 here, it's highlighted with the lap that you're actually on here, my 2:16 lap, which was about 3 seconds slower than my fast lap of the day, but can't blame traffic for it. they're up ahead there, but they're not slowing me down at this point. So anyway, going through turn 4 and up the hill to turn 5. This is a very sharp turn, just 34 miles an hour as we bend in here to the right. You can see that we've got the cones lined up for the apexes, which is pretty helpful. Jamming through here, there is no braking, no really letting off until you get to this corner here. So I just let off, no brakes, coast in, and then get the power down as I lean it in. So you can see the group up there is getting closer. This is sort of a quasi corkscrew that Thunderhill has going on. It's one of my favorite turns. When you get it right, it feels great. But it is blind as you crest that hill, so the steering damper is really helpful there. I'm starting to catch up to some traffic here. This would be the slowest turn on the track before you get to the S's and the back straight. It surprised me a little bit to pass this bike here. Maybe it's a 400. I guess it's a 400, so I shouldn't be too surprised. And braking hard into the next to last turn. Really not quite sure what this guy was going to do. I felt like I was coming up on him pretty fast, and if I hit this corner too fast, I might collect him, but so I kept my distance, and then I just absolutely get blasted past here on the left. I think that's a 600. So that is one lap of Thunderhill. To wrap up this review, I have to say that the dragy is a pretty cool product. It surprised me a little bit. I hadn't even really considered it because of the constant phone connection. But when they reached out to me and said, hey, can you try this out and let us know what you think? I was more than happy to do it. And I was really impressed. The benefits that this thing has going for it are, number one, the app. It's absolutely fantastic. Finding out where you can go faster, how you can be more consistent, and parsing through that data quickly is a game changer for track day guys and racers alike, I'm sure. The other thing it has going for it is the video input. You can do that all within the dragy system, which is really nice, rather than having to export a file and put it into some other program. And the ones that I've used, I think they look terrible. They're kind of clunky. The dragy graphics look fantastic. I really like them. And then I would say the small size. This thing is, really tiny for what it is. So
those three things are great about it. The con, I'm going to say again, you have to have a phone with you. But if you have an older phone that you don't really mind risking a little bit, and you have a setup on your bike to accommodate it, I would say by all means go for it, get it. And then the other thing is the mounting, which is kind of a small issue. Would be cool if they included Velcro, but you can run out to the hardware store, grab some Velcro, cut it to size, and for $2, you have an excellent mounting system. So I recommend it. It's pretty good. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. It makes a big difference to me so I can keep this content coming. All right, thanks. See you out there.